Good to see you, Niko. How are you doing? It's been a few weeks since we spoke.
Yeah, it's definitely been good. Been on holiday, come back, and now trying to get to grips of all the things that have been happening in the AI world whilst that's been going on. And
That's
that's a
right.
lot, it seems.
Yeah, for sure. And this is the Agent Workforce Podcast, episode number 13. And my name is Kristiina. I did marketing at Digital Workforce. And with me again, my amazing co-host, AI solution architect, Niko Lehtonen. In today's episode, we'll talk about Y Combinator's summer school videos, also about prompting at different levels, some pricing updates, and many other topics. With that, I suggest we get started. So I'm going to share my screen again for those who can't see. You might want to check these on YouTube or Spotify, where you can see the videos. So Y Combinator, it's probably the world's most famous accelerator program in the US, which we have talked about in the previous episodes as well. And they have fantastic content on YouTube. And now they have some summer school videos. And the one we're now talking about is Andrei Karpathy's video. And Andrei Karpathy, to whom we've also referred to multiple times in the podcast, is one of the most valued computer scientists in the world, formerly worked at Tesla, at OpenAI, and he has a fantastic new presentation about new software, how software is changing again. And in that presentation, he goes through the different evolutions of software from 1.0 to 3.0. He's talking about LLMs as like operating systems as of today. And the few topics I want to focus here are how he describes the psychology of LLMs, starting something you must understand when building solutions, when building AI agent solutions that are based on the LLM. So you need to understand what are the superpowers, but then again, what are the cognitive deficits and limitations of the current models. And what I really liked in this part of the presentation was that how he went through that, like the superpower part, which is like encyclopedic knowledge and memory. And he brought up the character in Rain Man, the movie. Most of you have probably seen that classical movie, and where there's a person who can practically remember a phone book, everything he reads. And you can kind of consider LLMs as remembering everything you can find online. So that's very hard to beat as a human, because they just have this incredible memory that everything that's been written out there online. But then there are lots of like flaws and limitations, of course, what Karpathy is calling cognitive deficiency, hallucinations. Frequently, LLMs make up stuff that we know. And then there's something that's called jagged intelligence, which I kind of like, because they can be superhuman in some problem solving areas, in some tasks. But then again, the classical example is like how many R's there are in strawberry. That has been fixed now. But similar type of super simple queries where human instantly knows the right answer, but LLMs can't give you the right answer. So it's what Karpathy is talking in terms of jagged intelligence. And then another deficiency is what he's calling anterogate, or it's a tough word, amnesia. So, it's again, he's referring to a few movies where your like memory is reset every evening, and that's kind of impossible for you to go to work or have relationship if you consider that your memory is being wiped out every night. And that's sort of how LLMs work as of today. So there's like the context memory, but apart from that, there's not really like true memory as of this point. And then he's also talking about like security vulnerabilities, something we've touched upon in this podcast as well. But something it's really good to keep in mind while building these solutions. Any reflections on in this part of Karpathy's presentation, Niko?
Well, I mean, it's the man has a point. I'll put it that way. Anybody who's tried to work with a longer project, let's say with Cursor and so on, has seen that the memory aspect is not excellent. And then you need to come up with ways to make it work for you. And context grounding is one thing, and trying to make these milestones and checkup points for the solution with which it can check what it's actually already done or what has been done in general. It doesn't know that it's done it. It's just that it's been done in general and what are the things to do next. So it doesn't try and go and redo something that's already happened. And I will also have to say, I would not have thought that my favorite movie is going to get name dropped in this presentation, but there we have Memento there. So hats off for that as well. But there's also an interesting way of how the main character there tries to refresh their memory or keep things in memory that they actually don't have memory of. So you should check that out if you've not seen it, and it sort of teaches you maybe a way how to work with Cursor or some of the other tools where you want them to have memory, but it's limited.
Yeah, there's tons of useful content and concepts and the way Karpathy breaks things down for us and also from the perspective of developing AI agents. So it's crucial to understand the limitations and then on the other hand, like the superhuman capabilities we're seeing today. I also like the concept of autonomy slider in the context of AI agents and Karpathy was also talking about the criticality of having human in the loop, something we've discussed here in the podcast earlier. Any comments on this part of the presentation, Niko?
Yeah, I mean, well, if I compare it to, the way we message around these things and so on, it's good to see that Andrea Karpathy is on the same track as we are, um, in the sense that you always want to have more autonomy first, but you also want to have a way, less autonomy first, but you also want to have a way of increasing it as time goes on. So the autonomy slider way of thinking is something that we've been pushing already for some time now, and and definitely also the point when it comes to human in the loop and so on, that you want to have a proper UI for those interactions. You don't want to go straight to the source. You want it to be some sort of way of communicating that's natural to the user, that makes sense and does exactly what it should do. And on that note, actually, he does bring up the point of whether the chat GPTs and so on that we see now, they are not in their final form in terms of UI. Looking at text boxes is not the most natural way. It's just the way it's been done so far. But some sort of innovation will happen and perhaps already has happened. We've just not seen it in wide use yet. And some of the, well, I guess most bet on outcomes is that it's going to be speech based instead. But some things you will also always want to keep reading. Like if I'm giving a piece of code, I need to check it. I don't want someone to read it out for me. But for different purposes, different ways of interacting will be needed, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. He refers to GUI multiple times in his presentation, like you said, Nico, graphical user interface, and how that makes a big difference. And in the context of some very popular tools as of today, how they have succeeded in building GUI and also the autonomy slider in those products, and how that's very important when building AI agent solutions and products. But yeah, a warm recommendation to go and check out this presentation that Karpathy did. And they also have some other great videos in that summer school. There's one from Sam Altman, there's one from Elon Musk, and some other presentations as well. So definitely go and check those on YouTube, Y Combinator's YouTube channel. And let's move on to Sam Altman. He has recently published a blog post about the gentle singularity, where he's explaining how the world is moving towards yet again more fast to more super digital, super intelligence. And we're close in, according to Sam Altman, where humanity is close to building digital super intelligence, and the scientific insights behind systems like GPT-4 and O3 have been hard won, but will lead to significant progress. And in the coming years, he's expecting that we're seeing yet again like major updates here. What also got my attention here was that he brought up about the use of, it was in this post, but also in the Y Combinator's video where he was presenting on AGI. He also talked about how much ChatGPT queries are consuming energy. And I haven't seen that like laid out in that sense before. So I thought that I want to bring it up here because that's something that people talk quite a lot nowadays, that this is, of course, consuming a lot of electricity and also water. But how Sam Altman said that regarding ChatGPT's consumption is that the average ChatGPT query uses about 0.34 watt hours of electricity. To put this into perspective, this is approximately what an oven would use in a little over 1 second, or a high efficiency light bulb would use in a couple of minutes. And an average ChatGPT query uses about 0.000, how many zeros? 385 gallons of water, which is roughly 1/15 of a teaspoon. So these are the current consumption levels of an average ChatGPT query, which doesn't, of course, sound a lot compared to like one query and all things that consume energy in the world. But of course, when you consider the mass of people and solutions out there, it's gonna get quite huge. Any comments here, Niko?
Yeah, well, I guess from one thing is it doesn't really define what is an average query, how many tokens is that, or anything of the sort. So, of course, that could bring a bit more perspective to it. But yeah, there's a lot of back and forth between different researchers and experts on what kind of energy use is it. Is it greater than expected? Is it lower than expected? I guess time will tell really what it is.
But more energy will need it to feed these tools and solutions out there. That's for sure. And massive factories are being built.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Then a company I also wanted to introduce here, which I heard just as of like yesterday or 2 days ago, a company called OpenEvidence. And they are based in the US. I think they were founded in 2022 or 2023, something along those lines, by a person graduated or from Mayo Clinic Platform Accelerator Program. And it's a large language model trained solely on biomedical literature, answering point of care clinical questions with inline citations. And you can find this if you go to openevidence.com. But what really caught my attention was that I heard that 1/4 of US physicians are using this tool daily to get assistance with their diagnosis. And I thought that this was quite like big penetration if really 1 in 4 US physicians use daily this type of tool, and that's quite useful. And I hadn't come across this before. Have you heard of this, Niko?
No, I've not seen this, and I should know a bit about the healthcare solutions out there. But yeah, this has completely eluded me as well, and really interesting to hear just how many people are using this already.
Yeah,
Um,
it's said that it's rapidly becoming the default search bar for many US doctors by mixing tight medical on only training data, aggressive publisher deals, and free to use model that beats legacy CDS tools on freshness and usability. And then there was an example, it's on Sequoia. Let me bring that up as well. They are backing up this company, but it's on Sequoia. It's inference. I think we talked about these inference videos as well, but here's the CEO of the company. Just gonna mute that, but you can check this video, and this is an inference by Sequoia, substack.com videos, and there he like explains through a use case how doctors are using now open evidence. And this is an example where there was a doctor on a flight, and there was an announcement that is there a doctor on board, that there's like an emergency situation, and then he explains through the use case how the doctor was able to use open evidence in that like stressful situation to make like decision what to do if the plane needs to turn back or make an emergency landing to some other city close by. And I think that was quite useful. But talking about the usefulness of the LLMs and the solutions out there, of course, there are these efficiency, which we were talking about earlier, but these can be like super useful as of today, as we know. So warm recommendation to check out this one as well if you're into LLMs in the space of like medical context. So this and pay attention to this product, OpenEvidence.
I'm opening it on my browser right now, so I can take a look at it after this.
Yeah, and you can also ask a medical question. I did that myself yesterday. I didn't run into a limitation. Probably they'll give you a couple of answers there, but then you'll hit the limit because it's only to professionals, so you can't use this like freely without being a medical professional. But anyways, something quite useful, and also based on the numbers they give out like publicly, that if 1 in 4 doctors in the US is using this regularly, so must be quite useful and valuable.
Yeah, and completely free to use, so there's that as well.
Yes. So the business model is built differently. All right. Then what did you also look into some of the price changes lately, Niko? Anything you want to share on that front?
Yeah, well, we've been discussing in general whether we should have some sort of a recap as an episode on what's been going on in the past months as we've been doing this podcast. But we might do that next time. But I already started looking into how the prices of some of these models has evolved over time. So let's say OpenAI's GPT-4o was pretty much the one to use in the end of last year before reasoning models came about and so on and so on. And if I look at the price of what it was on their website and compare it to what it is now, it's gone down by 33%, both for input tokens and output tokens. If you're using it through Microsoft Azure, the price is slightly different, but not much. But yeah, in 6 months, it's gone down by 33%. That's quite good. But of course, if you've been following the news, OpenAI has recently come out and said that they have dropped the price of their O3 model, which is the best one in the reasoning scene that they have. And that used to be $10 for input tokens and $80 for output tokens. And they've dropped it by 80%. So now it's just, $10 for input tokens and $40 for output tokens. And now it's just $2 for input and $8 for output. And inspired by this, I wanted to check how does these things compare with their non-reasoning models. If I look at, as I mentioned, GPT-4o has recently gone down by 33% within the past 6 months. But actually, GPT-4o is more expensive than GPT-4.1 because that's gone down a lot as well. And that's only $2 for input tokens and $8 for output tokens. So on the same level as O3, which is interesting. But then again, they have two different purposes. GPT 4.1 is the one if you want to use a fast model that replies quickly and is more effective in this sort of ongoing back and forth. Whereas if you want something that solves a puzzle for you, whether it's a business problem or whatever kind of thing you want to solve, then you want to use the reasoning model. And it might take some time. Like I think O3 can sometimes take minutes or even over 10 minutes to solve something, but it gets it done. O3 Mini, which is my go-to model still, is $1.1 per million tokens input and $4.4 per million output tokens. And it's cheaper than GPT-4o, GPT-4.1, and so on. That the pricing is, well, I'll put it this way. When I was starting out, wanting to build out agents, I was very, conscious about my LLM, selection. Oh, I don't want to use it because it's so expensive and so on. And everybody told me that don't worry, the price will go down. By the time, your project hits production, the price is going to be a fraction of what it was. And, at least in a 6-month window, a lot can change. I think O3 has been out for like what, 3 months, 2 months or something like that.
Yeah, a few months.
And if that's already gone down by 80%, that won't be the last price drop it gets. So it's things are really moving fast on the pricing side as well, which is a very good indication of how things are, and should give you the courage to really start building your project using the latest and best models, because the price will be down by the time you've got it in production.
What about O3 Pro that was launched some weeks ago? You can find that it's on the enterprise level of ChatGPT directly in the app, and also team, I guess in the personal pro level as well. So, but not in the plus tier though. So how much is that? And have you used that? I haven't, to be honest, I haven't yet. I've just heard that it could take like 20 minutes to give you a response. So it's thinking deeply, but yeah, definitely need to give it a try.
Yeah, I've not had a case yet where I've needed a model like that. But yeah, that one is 10 times more expensive than O3 and almost 20 times more expensive than O3 Mini. But yeah, apparently it is very good at what it does. But I need to have a proper reason for trying it out. I don't want to burn my tokens for nothing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, on that note, I think it was mentioned the Andre Karpathy video as well that these models all have different purposes, and that for writing. Oh, actually, Ethan Mollick said this in his newsletter that GPT 4.5, which no one remembers anymore, he said that it's very good if you want to do some writing, but that's a specific purpose for that model, for him, that it does something that the other models don't do in a similar way. That's quite interesting. I've not tried it for that purpose. Should do more comparison, but got too many customer projects to work on, so
Yeah.
time is limited.
But we still have this confusion of choosing the right model, choosing the right like frontier model, and then the model selection tool within one. So it's still a lot of confusion. We're waiting to get those all blended into one beautiful model that knows to help us with choosing the right model underneath. So looking forward to that coming out hopefully in the coming months. We'll see. All right, let's move on to prompting and maybe a couple of words about evals as well. So we've discussed prompting before here in this podcast and how it's an essential skill to have in the era of LLMs. And I want to discuss with you, Niko, about different levels of prompting. This is from my ChatGPT, because I was just having this conversation about like custom GPT instructions, which you can sort of regard as type of prompt. Then you'll have something we call user prompt, which is the prompt you give to a ChatGPT in your conversation. And then there's something we call system prompt. And these are also quite crucial when it comes to building AI agents and building agent solutions. So could you, Nico, break this down for us? What are the different like levels of prompts and the hierarchy between the prompts, and how do we actually use this? And maybe you can even give us an example of a system prompt.
Yeah, sure. So I'll start with the custom GPT instructions. So this is what you put in the definition when you want to build your own GPT. So if you go on OpenAI's website, for instance, they have their own /GPTs section where you can create your own GPT. Basically what it does, what that means is you choose a model, you write what you want the model to be a specialist in, and then that becomes your custom GPT. You can change the model and the background, after all that, but the point is that you define it to have a specific purpose. Maybe it's a field, maybe it's a task, and so on. And it's not usually been necessary to go through that. But just saying that option is out there. Usually, the way these things have worked is that there's the system prompt, which will contain all the instructions. But in the case of Bit and Custom GPT, you put some of the very high level instructions there, and then the task or specific instructions into the system prompt. And the system prompt will then contain examples of what kind of data is coming in, examples of what kind of data should be coming out, what you want to do with the data, what you need to do with the data, step-by-step instructions basically on what the model is expected to be doing. And user prompt is then the expected input for that. Usually you want to build this in a very structured manner depending on what the user is. The user might be another system, in which case it's very, very important that it's always structured in the same way. Same goes for the output, because if the LLM needs to put an output for another system, that other system will likely need it to be in a structured format. So you also have the structured formatting in the system prompt and all kinds of things. And to give you an example, some time ago, it was leaked on GitHub, the system prompts for Cursor and Lovable and so on. And I see you're sharing the Lovable. There's Lovable's prompt here right now. And you can just see the way that these are built and just how many lines of instructions there are in these. Some of it is very, very structured, like there's a bunch of HTML code that sort of gives you a baseline for what kind of a website is it starting to build. And the same goes with Cursor. Cursor actually is a multi-agent solution. There's even one agent for memory specifically. And that agent's purpose is to constantly keep looking at the input and output and determining what is relevant and what should be remembered going forward. It doesn't always get it right. There's a reason why you need to treat Cursor like it doesn't have long-term memory, but there are ways to get around that, and it's a good way to practice when you use Cursor in general. But this website on GitHub, or this project on GitHub, go take a look if you're curious to see just how these things are done. Cursor's one is a bit different in that it's makes it look like the AI is your slave. The agent prompt has some interesting pieces there that sort of, at least previously, have been sort of blackmailing the model to do its job. And it is very interesting, and it's close to how we do these things as well. But I will say that we've been able to definitely get influences from these. Go take a look if you're curious in seeing how these things are built. That's all I'm going to say. If you've not tried these, it's going to elevate your prompt building instantly.
Yeah. And I mean, these are if we talk about the system prompt, like we have here in front of us, the Cursor system prompt, it's the foundational layer. It's the base, and it's defining high level API of how solution operates or the tool operates. So you could maybe consider that. Is that like when these are leaked and you can find these online, what happens, and isn't that the most valuable part? But what's being discussed is that it's actually evals that are the most valuable parts. So maybe a couple of words about evals. We haven't discussed about evals before in this podcast. So could you just explain briefly what do we mean by evals and why those are the crown jewel of this agent development?
Yeah, so evals comes from evaluations. So as the name implies, it's about being able to evaluate what the system is doing, how it's been going. And if you like link your project with LangChain and so on, you can start getting these, a constant flow of information that goes way beyond just seeing the reasoning of a model. You actually see how many tokens are being burned at any point, what kind of tool use is happening in the background, and all kinds of statistics that sort of explain the train of thought of the LLM. With those evals, you can you can see if it's doing the right things, if it's doing things in the manner that you thought it would or you thought it should be doing. And then based on that, you can also start modifying your system prompt to guide it in a different direction and so on. It is really being treated as sort of the gold for these purposes, that it's the most valuable thing. I don't know. To me, it just seems natural that it's always available in the projects. I've not placed it that highly in my own analysis, because to me, it's just something that has to be there anyway.
Yeah, but I suppose it indicates how deeply you understand the user workflows and what's actually being done and how well it's performing, as you said, assessing how well an agent is performing its tasks, focusing on aspects of accuracy, efficiency, alignment with ethical guidelines and so forth. So really the core in that sense. So yeah, thanks for breaking that down for us, Niko. I think that's about all I had to share in this episode. Do you have anything in mind you'd like to?
My only thing to point out is the weather in Central Europe was much nicer than it is in Finland, and it's been a shock being back for a couple of days now.
Yeah, and it's not looking any better for the next 14 days or so. But hey, fingers crossed we'll get some sun over here for the summer period as well. But that's all for now. If you haven't done so yet, you can go and check our online courses, agentacademy.ai. I believe over 1,600 people or so have already taken the Understanding Agentic AI course, and that's getting really good reviews online. And there's also a longer course for the AI agent analyst one. So if you're lacking things to do in the summertime, you can go and buy the course and take the course online, and that's it. But I think we'll make one more episode now during the summertime, and then it's a bit of a break for us, and then we'll be back in August. That's all for today's episode. Thank you, Niko. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and I wish you a wonderful week ahead.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.